Students, welcome to my YouTube channel Physics Ka Funda. Today I'm here with you to present a new chapter for class 9, which is gravitation. Okay, so what is gravitation we will study in this chapter. Okay, so before that, if you have not subscribed my channel, please do subscribe and like my video and also share my video. Okay, so let's start today's class. So it is a new chapter which is known as gravitation. It is a field of, what do you mean by gravitation? That is what I'm going to explain. Gravitation is actually a field. Okay, gravitation is a field of study where we will study the different objects and what is the force between two objects like the moon, the sun, and the planets. The earth also is one planet, and ours are revolving around the sun. The moon is the satellite of the natural satellite of our earth, which revolve around earth. Why it is revolving, what is the force behind its revolution? These things are studied in the chapter gravitation, in the field of gravitation. Okay, so before starting the video, if you have not subscribed my channel, please do subscribe, please like my video and share my video. Done? So let's start today's video. Okay, so this is gravitation. As I told, that gravitation is actually a field. Field with matlab kya? What is field? Field means it's a study, field study. What study? Where we study the different objects, a bigger object, okay, how they are interconnected with the other objects, like how we are tied with the earth. Okay, if you leave any object here, it will fall down on the earth. Why is that so? Those things are studied in this chapter. Okay, suppose you are revolving one stone. Okay, you have make a stone with you tied a stone with what? With a string, and you're just revolving that string. That stone will be revolving around what? Around a circular path. You're somewhere here at the center. Okay, you're making the stone to move like this. That means the stone is moving, the stone is revolving around what? Around you, and it is revolving with what? It is revolving, it is not going away from you. That is what I'm going to make you understand. You see, that stone is not going away from you. What is the meaning here? It means that, listen, it means that there must have some force between stone and you. Okay, there must have some force between you and the stone. That's why your stone is not going away from you. Getting my point? Now if the string is somewhere it is broken like this, if it is broken somewhere here, what will happen? Will that stone continue to revolve around you? No, that stone will not continue to move around you. It will go, suppose the stone is somewhere here and your string is broken here somewhere. Then how it will move? That is what I am going to make you understand. When it is broken, then it was moving like this. It was moving like this. When it is broken, it will suddenly go like this in this direction. It will suddenly change its velocity. Means it will go away from you. That means why? Why it will go away from you? Because that force was through the string. उस स्ट्रिंग की वजह से क्या था, तुम्हारे और वो स्टोन के बीच में एक क्या था, एक फोर्स था. ओके, ड्यू टू दैट फोर्स एक्चुअली that stone was binded, that stone was bound to you, that stone was not going away from you. That force actually governs the gravitational force. Actually, when we leave any object, okay, at a height, this will go down and it will go down on the earth's surface. So from there also we can say that why it is going down on the earth, because the earth is a bigger object and the earth is pulling the objects towards its center. Okay, why is that? So we'll study in this chapter, and all this study actually started by Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, that's why Newton has given after he watched that apple, that apple was going down, and from that some concept has come in his mind, and then he formulated one universal law. Universal law means what? That law is applicable in anywhere. if you go to the moon, if you go to the any other planet, there also this law is valid. That's why this law is called universal law. Universal law means it's this law which is valid in each and every location of your universe. Okay, wherever you go to the Mars, you go to the Jupiter, you go to the Saturn, wherever you go, this law is valid. That's why this law is called universal law. Okay, and universal law of what we are studying, what we are doing study here, we are just going to understand what is gravitation. So that's why this law is actually a law of gravitation, and this law is valid in the universe wherever you go. That's why the name of the law is universal law of gravitation. Who gave that law? Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, so Newton ने क्या दिया था हमें? Universal law of gravitation, and that law we are going to study now. So if I say universal law of gravitation, universal law of gravitation, I'm going to write that. Okay, before that, if you have to have, see, before that, if you need to understand, okay, some concept here. Suppose, okay, fine, this law actually, what is this law? Newton said that when apple was going down, he thought that in between apple and the earth is a bigger object, apple is a smaller object, in between these two objects there must have some force. Agar force nahi hoga, if you don't give force, that object will not move. Definitely we'll study, I think we've studied in the previous chapter. If you have to, what is the function of a force? Force can move an object, force can change the shape of an object, like that. So you see, if the apple has to go down, it must have to have one force. Okay, that force, actually what force it was, that was given by universal law of gravitation. That means what? Universal law of gravitation हमें क्या दे रहा है? What it is giving? It gives actually the force between two different objects. दो ऑब्जेक्ट के बीच में एक फोर्स जो देता है, वो फोर्स कौन देता है? यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन से उस फोर्स का वैल्यू हमें मालूम होता है. द फोर्स वैल्यू, द वैल्यू ऑफ द फोर्स, द मैग्नीट्यूड ऑफ द फोर्स is calculated or is found out from the law of gravitation, which is known as universal law of gravitation. That means to find out the force, you need at least two objects. एक ऑब्जेक्ट, दो ऑब्जेक्ट चाहिए होगा फोर्स दिखने के लिए. ये एक ऑब्जेक्ट हो गया, तुम्हारा मास हो गया m1, इस ऑब्जेक्ट का मास m1 है. Getting my point what I am telling? Suppose you have one object m1, now you need to understand, okay, another object is there, and what is the force between that two objects? वो फोर्स कितना है? वो फोर्स अगर हमें दिखना है तो हमें क्या चाहिए होगा? एटलीस्ट हमें दो ऑब्जेक्ट चाहिए होगा. Okay, that is very common. If you need to have one force, you need to have two objects. दो ऑब्जेक्ट के बीच में हमें क्या चाहिए? फोर्स चाहिए. And then we can see that another object is there. अगर इसका मास m2 है, m1, why I have written m1 m2? Because two objects may have different masses. Same भी हो सकता है. So you see m1 m2 are the masses of the two objects. और उसके बीच में जो डिस्टेंस होगा ना, वो सेंटर से सेंटर लिया आता है. सेंटर से सेंटर उसको d से लिखते हैं. डिस्टेंस is written by d, and distance is not taken from one end, this ends, it is always taken from the center. Why I am telling you? Suppose this is earth, okay, fine, this is earth, this is moon, suppose. Now you see one person is there here, suppose on the surface of the moon, and one person is there on the surface of the earth. Clear? Earth के surface पे एक person है, another person is on the surface of the moon. What is the distance between these two person? What is the distance between these two person? You have to take from here to here. यहाँ से यहाँ तक अगर हम ले लेंगे डिस्टेंस, तो वो क्या हो जाएगा? वो दोनों, getting my point? वो दोनों person के बीच में क्या हो जाएगा? वो डिस्टेंस हो जाएगा. Understood? Now you see what happened. Wait a minute. Now it is okay. Fine. So this is distance. Why we are taking? Because if two objects are there or two persons are there on that side, then your distance will be from here to here. But if two persons are there इन दिस साइड, इन दिस पॉइंट एंड इन दिस पॉइंट, उसका डिस्टेंस क्या हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा। तो हमें लिखना क्या होगा, हमें डिस्टेंस लेना क्या होगा, व्हाट डिस्टेंस वी विल टेक द एवरेज ऑफ दिस डिस्टेंस एंड दिस डिस्टेंस, एवरेज वी हैव टू टेक बिकॉज द पर्सन मे हैव this location and he might be somewhere here, he might be somewhere here. So अगर यहाँ होगा तो डिस्टेंस बड़ा हो जाएगा, यहाँ होगा तो डिस्टेंस छोटा हो जाएगा. That's why we have to take average distance which is from center to center. Okay, so whenever we take the distance between two objects in case of gravitational universal law of gravitation, we always take from center to center. Clear? Done? So that distance is written by D, and what is M? M is the mass of first object, and M1 is the mass of the first object, M2 is the mass of the second object. Now, what does this universal law state? Actually, universal law states that, universal law of gravitation states that there is an attraction force between each and every point, each and every object. ये law ये बोलता है कि अगर तुम्हारे यूनिवर्स पे दो ऑब्जेक्ट है ना, तो उस दो ऑब्जेक्ट के बीच में एक क्या है, अट्रैक्शन फोर्स है. दिस यूनिवर्सल लॉ स्टेट्स दैट इफ यू हैव टू ऑब्जेक्ट्स देयर मस्ट हैव सम फोर्स. व्हाट फोर्स? अट्रैक्शन फोर्स बिटवीन दोस टू ऑब्जेक्ट्स, एंड दैट फोर्स actually is given by this law of gravitation. What will be the value of the force? We'll study now. Understood what I'm telling? Universal law of gravitation states that any two objects in this universe attract each other. Any two objects in this universe attract each other. Clear? Attract each other. Now, what will be the force? We have to say that universal law of gravitation states that any two objects in this universe attract each other with a force. Attract करेगा तो force होगा, with a force which is proportional to the product of their masses. वो दोनों ऑब्जेक्ट का मास कितना है, m1 m2. What are the masses of the two objects? m1 and m2. उसका प्रोडक्ट क्या हो जाएगा, मल्टीप्लीकेशन हो जाएगा ना, m1 and m2. बोलता है कि अगर उसका मल्टीप्लीकेशन ज्यादा होगा, इफ द प्रोडक्ट इज मोर, द फोर्स विल बी मोर. इट इज सेड बाय द यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन. यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन क्या बोलता है? आई एम टेलिंग अगेन एंड अगेन बिकॉज इट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन स्टेट्स दैट एनी टू ऑब्जेक्ट इन दिस यूनिवर्स attract each other with a force which is proportional to the product of their masses and also inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Inversely proportional. अभी देखो proportional क्या होता है, inversely proportional क्या होता है. Let me explain this. Proportionality means suppose if you write x proportional to y, there you see if you increase the y value, x value will increase. That means proportionality or inversely proportionality is actually what? A relation between two quantities. दो क्वांटिटी के बीच में एक रिलेशन जब हम लिखेंगे, एक रिलेशन जो हम बनाएंगे, एक को बढ़ाओ दूसरा बढ़ता है, एक को घटाओ दूसरा घटता है, तो उसको बोलते हैं प्रोपोर्शनलिटी. डन? If you increase one quantity, the other quantity increases, then we say that this is proportional. If you decrease the other quantity and the other quantity also decreases, then we say that it is proportional. How to understand? I am just giving you one very very small example. You will understand what is actually proportionality. Okay, like this you see, if I say for a kid, if we say for a kid, height of the kid is proportional to age. देखो ये हो जाएगा, ये एक क्वांटिटी है एज, ये एक क्वांटिटी है हाइट ऑफ द पर्सन. एक छोटा बच्चा का क्या होगा, अगर एज बढ़ जाएगा, देखो अगर 1 ईयर का बच्चा है तो उसका जो हाइट होगा 2 ईयर का बच्चा उससे ज्यादा हाइट होगा. दैट मीन्स इफ यू इंक्रीज द एज, गेटिंग माई पॉइंट व्हाट आई एम टेलिंग, इफ यू इंक्रीज द एज, हाइट इज ऑल्सो इंक्रीजिंग. गेटिंग माई पॉइंट? दैट मीन्स height is proportional to age. Age अगर बढ़ेगा, height क्या हो जाएगा, बढ़ जाएगा. Getting my point? This is proportional. That means here we have written this force. वो force क्या है? वो force है दोनों ऑब्जेक्ट के बीच में जो अट्रैक्शन फोर्स है उस फोर्स का वैल्यू है, और वो फोर्स किसके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है, m1 m2 के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है। कैसे डिपेंड करता है, हाउ इट डिपेंड्स, इट डिपेंड्स दैट इफ the m1 and m2 are increases, that means if the product is increases, m1 m2 increases, then the force also increases. That means massive object has more force, definitely mass अगर बढ़ जाएगा तो force भी क्या हो जाएगा, बढ़ जाएगा, because it is proportional. s बढ़ जाएगा, height बढ़ जाएगा, masses बढ़ जाएगा, force बढ़ जाएगा. Getting my point? This is proportional. And what is inversely proportional actually? Inversely proportional is written like this: x is प्रोपोर्शनल टू 1 बाई वाई। अगर y का वैल्यू बढ़ाओ तो x का वैल्यू क्या हो जाएगा, घट जाएगा, उल्टा हो जाएगा, उससे क्या हो जाएगा, उल्टा हो जाएगा। उसमें क्या था, एक क्वांटिटी का वैल्यू बढ़ा दिया, दूसरा क्वांटिटी का वैल्यू बढ़ गया था, लेकिन इसमें क्या होगा, व्हाट विल हैपन हियर, इफ यू इंक्रीज वन क्वांटिटी द अदर क्वांटिटी विल डिक्रीज। इसको बोलते हैं इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल। वन मोर एग्जांपल इज देयर, यू विल अंडरस्टैंड। इफ आई राइट लाइफ स्पान is proportional to 1 by age। देखो तुम अगर सोच लो कि तुम 60 years तक क्या हो जाओगे, you will die at 60 suppose, okay, for example you will die at 60। now your age is suppose your age is 15 years, your age is 15 years। now what is your I mean lifespan is there, what else is there, 60 minus 15, it will be 45 years you will again see, until 45 years you will live more another 45 years। getting my point, what I am telling? Done? now after 1 year your lifespan will decrease, after 1 year your age will be 16। now after 1 year I am telling, अगर तुम्हारा एज 16 हो गया, तुम्हारा लाइफ स्पैन अभी क्या हो जाएगा, 44 हो जाएगा। देखो डिक्रीज हो गया, लाइफ स्पैन क्या हो गया, एज अगर बढ़ जाएगा लाइफ स्पैन क्या हो जाएगा, डिक्रीज हो जाएगा। गेटिंग माय पॉइंट, इफ द एज इंक्रीजेस लाइफ स्पैन डिक्रीजेस, दैट इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल। गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? डन? So you see here what is written, you see f proportional to 1 by d square. What is the meaning? If you see, if d value increases, what is the meaning? What is the physical meaning? d value increases means if the distance of the two object increases। अगर दो ऑब्जेक्ट बहुत दूर है तो क्या होगा, उसके बीच में जो फोर्स होगा वो क्या हो जाएगा, थोड़ा सा कम हो जाएगा। हाउ? 1 by d square। d का वैल्यू बढ़ाओ, क्या बढ़ जाएगा, done? Too bright it is, I don't know why, I'm not able to do this। okay, fine। so you see this is f is proportional to 1 by d square। now you see what you have to do, you have to add this 2। इसमें f क्या हो गया, प्रोपोर्शनल टू 1 by ये 1 by d square हो गया, इसमें क्या हो जाएगा, m1 m2, उसके नीचे एक 1 है ना। सो व्हाट वी हैव टू डू, हमें क्या करना है, इस दोनों को कंबाइन करना है। ये कंबाइनिंग दिस टू वी कैन राइट f प्रोपोर्शनल टू m1 m2 डिवाइडेड बाय d स्क्वायर। कैन आई राइट लाइक दिस, m1 m2 ऊपर हो जाएगा, नीचे क्या है, d स्क्वायर है। ये प्रोपोर्शनल साइन को अगर हम हटाएंगे, इफ वी राइट इन प्लेस ऑफ प्रोपोर्शनल साइन वी आर राइटिंग इक्वल साइन, देन वी हैव टू गिव वन कांस्टेंट। ये रूल है, अगर प्रोपोर्शनल साइन हम प्रोपोर्शनल सिंबल को हम हटा देंगे तो एक कांस्टेंट लिखना पड़ता है। ये कांस्टेंट हम g से लिखते हैं और m1 m2 बाय d स्क्वायर। लिसन वेरी वेरी केयरफुली, ये जो फोर्स हो गया ना, इस फोर्स को बोलते हैं ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स बिटवीन दिस टू ऑब्जेक्ट्स। ये दोनों ऑब्जेक्ट के बीच में ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स कितना है, F is equal to capital G m1 m2 divided by r d square, okay, where m1 is the mass of the first object, m2 is the mass of the second object, d is the distance between these two objects, and F is the force between these two objects। and what is Z? Z is actually a constant। what constant? proportionality constant। Z को हम, Z यहाँ क्यों आया, क्योंकि ये प्रोपोर्शनल सिंबल है। इस प्रोपोर्शनल सिंबल की जगह हमने अगर इक्वल साइन लिखा तो हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा, वी हैव टू टेक वन कांस्टेंट। इस कांस्टेंट को बोलते हैं, दैट कांस्टेंट इज कॉल्ड यूनिवर्सल, दिस लॉ इज कॉल्ड यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन, दिस कांस्टेंट इज कॉल्ड ग्रेविटेशनल कांस्टेंट। This z is called, z is a proportionality constant. Proportionality constant which is called gravitational constant. इसको क्या बोलते हैं? Gravitational constant बोलते हैं. That means you see g is called gravitational constant, f is the gravitational force, m1 m2 are the masses of the two objects, d is the distance between the two objects. हमें क्या मिल गया? What is the SI unit of force now? Now if anyone asks you what is the SI unit of z, what is the SI unit of gravitational constant, you need to find out. तो इस लॉ से हमें क्या लिखना पड़ेगा? z लिखना पड़ेगा. यहां से z हम क्या लिखेंगे? z इज इक्वल टू क्या हो जाएगा? z इज इक्वल टू f d स्क्वायर बाय m1 m2. देखो z है ना, z क्या हो जाएगा? f के जगह f क्रॉस मल्टीप्लाई हो जाएगा f के साथ d स्क्वायर डिवाइडेड बाय क्या आ जाएगा? m1 और m2. सो ये हो जाएगा z. यहां से हमें फ्रॉम हियर वी कैन इजीली फाइंड आउट what is the SI unit of z. SI unit of z will be how much? SI unit of z is क्या हो जाएगा? z का SI unit क्या हो जाएगा? इज इक्वल टू फोर्स का न्यूटन है. SI unit of force is न्यूटन. d is the distance. डिस्टेंस का SI unit क्या है? मीटर. सो मीटर का क्या हो जाएगा? स्क्वायर है ना, d स्क्वायर. तो मीटर स्क्वायर हो जाएगा. ये मास है, मास m1. मास में हम क्या लिखते हैं? किलोग्राम. kg इसमें भी हम लिखेंगे kg. kg इंटू kg क्या हो जाएगा? न्यूटन मीटर स्क्वायर पर kg स्क्वायर. 2 kg है ना, तो kg स्क्वायर हो जाएगा. तो दिस न्यूटन मीटर स्क्वायर पर kg स्क्वायर, इसको और ऐसे भी बोलते हैं न्यूटन मीटर स्क्वायर kg इनवर्स स्क्वायर. क्योंकि ये kg अगर ऊपर उठ जाएगा ना तो क्या हो जाएगा? -2 हो जाएगा. तो ये क्या हो जाएगा? दैट विल बी द SI यूनिट ऑफ यूनिवर्सल कांस्टेंट, सॉरी ग्रेविटेशनल कांस्टेंट. SI यूनिट ऑफ ग्रेविटेशनल कांस्टेंट. तो हमें आज क्या मिल गया? ग्रेविटेशनल यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन मिल गया. यहां हमने क्या किया? व्हाट वी हैव डन हियर इन यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन वी फाइंड आउट द फोर्स बिटवीन टू ऑब्जेक्ट्स. और यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन क्या बोलता है? एनी टू ऑब्जेक्ट इन दिस यूनिवर्स अट्रैक्ट ईच अदर विथ ए फोर्स व्हिच इज प्रोपोर्शनल टू द प्रोडक्ट ऑफ देयर masses and which is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. वहां से हमें क्या मिल गया? हाँ, अगर हम proportional sign को हम क्या what we have done, that one we have erased, that one we have given in place of proportional sign we have given equal sign. Then we have to do what? We have to take one constant which is called the proportionality constant, and that proportionality constant is actually called gravitational constant. And what is the gravitational constant? Here we got z. Okay, we have written z. And what is the SI unit of gravitational constant? It is Newton meter square per kg square. अभी इसका वैल्यू क्या है? What is the value of z? z का वैल्यू हमने कैलकुलेट किया. z का वैल्यू है 6. ये हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा? रिमेंबर करना पड़ेगा. z is equal to 6.673 into 10 to the power -11 न्यूटन मीटर स्क्वायर पर kg स्क्वायर. न्यूटन मीटर स्क्वायर पर kg स्क्वायर इसका वैल्यू है. और इसको रट लो, इसको रिमेंबर कर लो. z is equal to 6.673 into 10 to the power -11 न्यूटन मीटर स्क्वायर पर kg स्क्वायर. दिस इज द वैल्यू ऑफ द यूनिवर्सल लॉ ऑफ gravitation. Done. So for today's class this much is sufficient. You have to study this much, and in the next video we'll study some problems regarding this. Okay, so thank you for watching. If you like my video, please do share. Okay, thank you.